Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. After months of a completely unnecessary war, thousands and thousands dead, gas prices through the roof, and a backlogged shipping vessels unable to freely traverse the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump now says, congratulations to me, to all of us. The Strait is open for business. Now, he also announced he was permanently opening the Strait earlier this week. And last week, he said it was going to reopen with or without buy-in from Iran. The difference now, of course, is that it seems like Iran, crucially, is on board, at least in theory. This morning, Iran's foreign minister said the Strait is all open. Although, also, not so fast, surprise, this evening, just a little while ago, the Speaker of Iran's parliament came out to say Iran will close it again if the U.S. continues its blockade of Iranian ships there, as Donald Trump has pledged to do, and as U.S. military authorities are boasting about within the last few hours. So, is the Strait open or not? Who knows? But assuming the Strait does end up staying open, it will all be because Donald Trump gave into Iran's demands for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, which both countries agreed to yesterday. And to be clear, this is a good thing. But it also speaks to who controls the leverage in these negotiations. I mean, it's clear as day to everyone. Iran found the crucial pressure point, control over the flow of oil through the Strait, and they used it to force the United States and then Israel to the negotiation table. And today, the man who renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America announced the deal. And get this, he called the Strait of Hormuz the Strait of Iran, leaving absolutely no ambiguity as to who controls it. He gave it to him. It's theirs now, courtesy of Donald Trump. That one gaffe, if it even was a gaffe, may best represent Trump's complete and total failure here. Remember, the Strait was open 10 weeks ago before this dumb war. And then when the war started, Iran shut it down, predictably, as everyone said they would. And now, Donald Trump has made it perfectly clear who is in control there and very helpfully gifted them a new name, the Strait of Iran. We also learned today the Trump administration is negotiating a deal to give Iran $20 billion in frozen Iranian assets in exchange for the country giving up its stockpile of enriched uranium. That would be the material necessary to use for producing a bomb at some point. And I got to say, I mean, again, I've covered this now for years. For anyone who remembers the right-wing freakout over President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, this is a truly head-spinning development. That deal, remember, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also involved unfreezing some, again, Iranian assets the U.S. hold, in total about $50 billion. And around the same time, the U.S. also negotiated a long-summary legal settlement with Iran, sending the country $400 million plus an additional $1.3 billion in interest. And the right lost their minds over it.
Wow. The White House admitting with the money we're giving Iran will likely end up in the hands of terrorists, and they still sent it anyway. This shocking revelation coming as critics call the secret $400 million payment to Iran a ransom to get our prisoners back. Are we playing a costly game that's emboldening our enemies?
$400 million in small unmarked bills flying into Iran on a unmarked aircraft like it was a drug cartel transaction.
Where do you think the money goes when you give them unmarked bills and they're the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the region, and Hezbollah has all of this new inventory and cash?
Without exaggeration, the Obama administration, President Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, will become the leading global financiers of radical Islamic terrorism in the world.
Gotta hand it to Ted Cruz, just as likable then as he is now. Now, you may be thinking, who remembers some random Fox News scandal from a decade ago? Well, the answer is Donald Trump, kind of.
Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash. Took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash? Hundreds of millions of dollars. You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful. They sent hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember? Right? You remember. Hundreds of millions of dollars in a Boeing 757. I think there are two of them loaded. They took the seats out and they put cash. And it was so much that there wasn't a bank in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C. that had any money left. They stripped them of all their money, put it into place, sent it to Iran, almost as ransom.
Okay, so obviously it's not true. Nobody emptied out the banks in Washington, Virginia, Maryland. The U.S. did coordinate an airlift of cash to Iran. It was mostly Swiss francs and euros procured from the Netherlands and Switzerland. That's all beside the point, though. Donald Trump does not appear concerned with sending money to Iran. That is what is so wild about all of this. Remember where this all started and where we are now. We had a deal to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, a deal negotiated with international partners that meant that it would be monitored, right? Their levels of uranium enrichment, that we would know what they were doing, that they had a breakout time where that was quantifiable. And that was no small thing. It took nearly 2 years to negotiate the deal, and it was working. No one denies that it was working. They were not developing a weapon. And then Donald Trump tore it up for no real reason. And then 8 years later, he decided to go to war with Iran, also for no real reason. And thousands of people died as a result. And, you know, I struggle because we say that on air, and it just feels like a sentence that you say. But again, hundreds of school children were killed in that one bombing, right? That's about the same number of civilians killed in that one instance, the U.S. striking an Iranian school, as in the Oklahoma City bombing. Think about the Oklahoma City bombing and what that did to the American imagination, right? The deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil before September 11th. That's one strike that we were responsible for on a school on the first day of this war. And then, as a result of this war, 13 American service members also came home in caskets. More than 1 million people are displaced in Lebanon. Trump destabilized the entire region. There's huge parts of the energy infrastructure in the region that have been lit on fire. Untold suffering caused to real human beings who are right now still injured and mourning and homeless and had their lives shattered. And now at the apparent end of it all, or in the intermission, we're worse off than we were a decade ago when we had that deal that Republicans and Donald Trump hated. And what's more, remarkably, amazingly, Iran now appears to have even greater geopolitical leverage because it controls the Strait of the Strait of Hormuz. They will decide who gets to pass through and if they have to pay a toll. It's completely up to the IRGC. And this is Trump's mission accomplished moment. Here's the thing. This is how it always goes. Everyone's forgotten this episode, but remember this. Do you remember in Trump's first term when he went on this completely psychotic, week-long thing about the North Koreans where he's coming out in Bedminster and saying, we're going to rain fire and fury down North Korea. And then he realized he lacked the leverage that he threatened. So instead, he pivoted and held a summit with Kim Jong-un, and the DPRK went on testing nuclear weapons, right? Nothing happened out of that summit. Nothing to curtail their nuclear weapons program. Nothing at all. They got a huge, big diplomatic win, meeting with Trump. And obviously, again, that was preferable to war, but it just speaks to this pattern. Trump talks a big game, he barks real loud, and then he overplays his hand and then leaves things worse off than where they were before he got involved. Exact same pattern unfolded during both of Trump's trade wars with China. Remember? Lots of threats, lots of big talk on Truth Social or Twitter back then, all caps, talking big game, provoking a fight. And then when China used its leverage, particularly on soybean purchases that American farmers depend on, Trump totally folded when he realized the other side outplayed him. And then he left things worse off than they were before. And so at the end of the day, the strait reopening is a good thing, if it is. The ceasefire, if it stands, is a good thing. The war hopefully ending, a good thing. The war in Lebanon ending, a good thing. So give him that, I guess. For now, he managed to remove himself from the escalation trap with Iran that he himself put himself in. But again, we would all be a hell of a lot better off if he had never entered into it in the first place.